Ameba Pico was an online virtual world that launched in 2010 only to shut down 2 years later in December of 2012. You may have played it through Facebook, but most people played it on pico.ameba.net. And it was the American version of Ameba Pigg, the most popular online Japanese social game that's still operating today. And if you're watching this video, you probably know exactly what Ameba Pico was. And like me, you're still sour 6 years later that they took it off the internet. So today I wanted to examine why Ameba Pico shut down, maybe more from a business perspective. So when Pico was shutting down, the reason they gave was limited development resources, and to me and many others, this just didn't add up. The game had over 1 million players, it was super active, and most importantly, it had a Japanese counterpart, Ameba Pigg, that content could just be ripped from, so you didn't have to actually program anything new. You could just translate the content that already existed in the Japanese game into the American version. And there was no further explanation from the parent company, CyberAgent, as to why Ameba Pico was being shut down. After the announcement, and while the game was still online, the rumor started to spread in-game and on the internet that a player had been kidnapped and their parents were suing the parent company of Ameba Pico. So everywhere on the internet, namely Yahoo Answers, I think is where it started, someone claimed that there was like a 40-year-old dude who pretended to be 17 and got some player to meet up with him. The story didn't really make much sense. Now, given the sheer lack of moderation on Ameba Pico, the story's not that far-fetched. And I actually knew a girl who, a couple years later on Ameba Pigg, met up with her Ameba Pigg boyfriend and got herself into kind of the same situation in real life. So let's look at why this was just accepted. On Ameba Pico, there was pretty much no chat filter, if there is one, which I don't remember. It was really easy to bypass. And that was one big appeal of Pico. It was just a chat room and nothing really got filtered. But in all those years, no actual information has come out on that theory. The only bit of information is that one poorly written Yahoo answer that doesn't even make logical sense if you read it. CyberAgent definitely wouldn't have been ordered to pay pretty much any sum of money to a girl who almost got hurt just because her behavior on the website. So besides being totally illogical, nobody really knew the players involved in this incident. And despite having I think a player base of about 1 million people, it was pretty interconnected, whether it was through cliques or clans or just mutual friends. Everyone kind of knew each other. Somebody would have had more information on this had it really happened. So for that reason, I think it's just bogus. My initial suspicion was that CyberAgent America wasn't performing well, and the original CyberAgent in Japan wanted to defund them. This would explain the lack of resources for development, but I looked into it about a year after Pico closed, and in 2013, CyberAgent in Japan had a net income of 100 million USD. 100 what? Limited developer resources what? Ameba Pico contained the exact same content as Ameba Pigg, the Japanese version, just translated to English. Pigg had so many more features that they could have just been put into Pico directly. All that would have had to be done is translation work. Plus, Pico reached a huge market and had big player bases worldwide, whereas Ameba Pigg only reached the Japanese market. It really makes no sense that Ameba Pico would be forced off the internet due to development issues. So then why did Ameba Pico close? It's not just profit and losses. Perhaps while CyberAgent America and Ameba Pico were both profitable entities, the original CyberAgent in Japan decided that there are other projects that will be more profitable to devote resources to. Maybe there were too many difficulties in the international expansion into the American market, and Ameba Pico just didn't hit its projections. It's possible that CyberAgent just wanted to stay in Japan when they realized that Ameba Pico couldn't capture American market share like it did in Japan with the entire Ameba network. Or maybe even Pico was just a short test to see if they could expand into Western markets, and Pico just didn't do as well as they wanted it to. Perhaps it's a combination of all of these factors, or even more. There's so many possible explanations that it's impossible to cover them all, and it gets really speculative. So unfortunately, on the 17th of December 2012, Ameba Pico Virtual World shut down. Around that time, a fan-made social networking site called piggers.net opened, and that was basically like Facebook for Ameba Pico, except you had to connect your actual Facebook to it, so you lost all the anonymity, and no one really wanted to use it, and now it's shut down. But at least there was still Pigg, the Japanese version, right? After Pico closed, a lot of people moved over to pig.ameba.jp. It was more tight-knit than Pico because we were an English-speaking community of thousands among millions of Japanese. While the game was entirely Japanese, it was exactly like the English Pico, except for a couple more features like fishing, an outside room for your player's home, and additional places to travel in the virtual world. So over the next couple of years, the English-speaking community on Pigg dwindled to almost non-existence. In the end of 2014, I contacted my last friends from Pigg and added them on social media. So in total, I still stay in contact with 3 people that I know from Pico and Pigg. One suggested that Pico closed because of cheaters hacking Ameba Gold instead of buying it, which caused Ameba Pico to lose revenue. But Pigg, the same game, had even more cheaters and was still able to turn a profit. So this brings us back to the many possibilities of Pico's closure, and ultimately our uncertainty. We all miss Pico, and after 6 years I think it's safe to say that it won't return. As for why it closed, we may never learn more, but at least in the end we have good memories and good friends to share them with. Thanks for watching, and I hope that this video brought you some closure with Ameba Pico.